So, how are we looking, Caitlin? We're all set. Tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai haere mai to any of our community who may be joining us for our council meeting this afternoon. Very warm welcome to you. Our first item that we are addressing this afternoon, councillors, is item 9, and it is the rates remission and postponement policies. This policy and rates remission relates to our heavily impacted community who have been suffering through Cyclone Gabrielle, and the overwhelming look at their recovery and the very stressful time that our community who have been impacted are going through. So I just invite Richard and Bruce to speak to this paper, and if there's any additional information you wish to share with us, very warm welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll largely take the report as read. We've had a number of conversations over the last few months since Cyclone Gabrielle around the opportunities to remit rates for those most affected properties, and in our current situation has allowed us to do that for red and yellow stickered properties, and what this paper is requesting is to take that a little bit further through an amendment to the remission of rates in dwellings and land affected natural disaster policy. So that allows us then now to take it further than what we've been able to do to date, and really look beyond just those red and yellow placarded properties to other properties where the primary residence, for example, hasn't been affected, but the land has been significantly damaged. So all these decisions do come at a cost to council, and the decisions that have been made to date, and as far as this financial year is concerned, $706,000 as at near the end of May had been remitted on rates, and when we expect that would continue into next financial year, given that red stickered properties would continue as would yellow, and that number would only decline as those properties were remedied and people could occupy them going forward. And then when we overlay the additional remission opportunities for other affected properties, then we sort of expect that we will have somewhere in the vicinity of $1 to $1.5 million worth of rate remissions to incur next financial year. So that's effectively $1 to $1.5 million of revenue that we won't normally receive. So just within the recommendations, Your Worship, just like to just recommend just one additional amendment to B. When we create or change remissions policy, it is normally through an annual plan process, and the Local Government Act stipulates there's normally a consultative process that goes with that. There has been an order of council passed by Cabinet that allows us to do an abbreviated consultation process through that, but nevertheless we still need to do some form of consultation, and we will go out and we'll contact those sort of agencies like Federated Farmers, like the Rural Advisory Group, the Horticulture Advisory Group, and more broadly as well around, and get their feedback on this policy as it goes forward. So with B, we'd just like to add to the end of that recommendation that it's subject to consultation and a final decision of council, because we'll bring that consultation and the feedback that we receive back to council probably in the middle of July, which still enables us to carry on with this process.
Okay, thank you very much. So that would allow us a month to from the time, so the time that we would pass this to go out for consultation. I'm just wondering when this we'd be able to impact and make a difference here.
Yeah, so the consultation process, Your Worship, would be an abbreviated process, probably starting beginning of next week, and would run for a couple of weeks, and that would provide us with the time to collate feedback we received and report back to council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Worship. Under conditions and criteria, the number, should be number 2. What I'm really interested in is this at the discretion of council, and the other one is how will we identify these properties? Because I think of a block of land out near Rissington where the house is fine, but what were their river flats is actually now river. And how do we gather that information to be able to bring it back? How do we publicise this? Thank you.
Richard, you might be able to add to me, but effectively, just like with the yellow sticker properties, we're asking property owners to come to us and tell us of their situation. With the yellow placated properties, it's not, in some cases, it's not the primary dwelling that's been affected, so we need to understand that situation. So we're reliant on property owners coming to council and making a request for a remission, and that would apply to this new category as well.
Great.
So just to follow up on that, I think if we are going out to consult with these agencies, I think it would be beneficial to pick that storyline up, that if they know of properties that are not red stickered or yellow stickered, but are significantly damaged, becoming unusable or uneconomic, to make sure that they also feed that information back. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, Councillor Butto?
Thank you. And I think this is a really good step forward in terms of caring for some people who've been through some very difficult times. My question was also around that conditions and criteria, the number 2, or number 1, that's number 2. Where we say severely impacted and land has become unusable, I think some clarification around what those terms mean would be really helpful. There's a lot of properties where some of the land has been severely eroded, but it may not be a significant portion of the property. It may be parts and bits, and it might be that the river flats are gone, which contribute hugely economically to the viability of that property or that farm, whereas the back hills mightn't be as impacted, or, you know, there's a whole bunch of differences in there. I was just curious to know what work would do to clarify those terms.
Yeah, it very much will be a case on case basis. I've been talking with my counterpart in Gisborne, because they've recently introduced a similar policy. It's so it is something we've been out there thinking about, looking at, and something Federated Farmers actually submitted on as part of the order in council for the revaluation. It's hard to have strict criteria. I think around this, there's going to have to be a bit of working through with the applicant exactly what land is involved, what economic impact has been on the property. You know, we want to help people as much as possible, but we don't want to go too far and just open it up to, as you say, a portion of land that's damaged but doesn't have any economic impact on the property. It will very much be on a case by case basis. And we'll work through the process with the applicants. You know, it won't just be okay, apply and we'll get back to you in a few weeks' time. You know, it's the idea is we'll work with the applicants on what, if we require further information, what has happened and stuff. You know, and the rates team have been kind of used to that now, because originally they were starting to call up all the yellow stickered applicants. So, you know, they've got experience of talking to some of these people anyway, around asking those questions.
So thank you, Richard. And while you have been working on the other parts of the yellow and red stickered residential dwellings, have you heard from some of our lifestyle properties and asking the similar question about whether there could be them being included? Yes.
We've already got sort of some applications that are there, and we've said to them, look, we're looking to introduce this policy.
Okay.
And we're already starting to work with some of those.
Yep. Okay, so it's a lot of interest. Thank you. Councillor Buddy, you got a further follow-up question?
Yes, thanks. Just also noting that for a lot of properties, they may have had a huge amount of infrastructure damage, which has made their land less economic or uneconomic, rather than necessarily pasture damage. For example, if a slip takes out a whole bunch of fences, the pasture damage might be minimal, the infrastructure damage might be quite large.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon?
Yes, thank you. A lot of people have been severely impacted by the effect of Gabriel, and I broadly support the policy, but I just have one area, and I can't find it in the presentation. In a situation where a property is, maybe the access and the land have been rendered unusable, but the house is still livable, where does that fall in? Is there an intermediate stage that is a partial rates remission? Because a person that can live in their house, even if the land's gone, is better off than a person that has lost everything, the land and the house. And I'm thinking particularly of the house. So can we handle that, or is that not in there anywhere?
Yes, we can handle it, and we handle it in the way that we just apply discretion to, and through the delegations that our delegations policy set, which is to myself, we can make decisions and remit properties where, in a situation where their primary dwelling might be absolutely okay, but they've got no way of accessing it. And we've looked at those cases as well.
Yeah, that's fine. Are there any? No, I'm happy to move it when the time comes.
And I was just to follow up to Mr. Allen, that we are actually doing that at the moment. We have some properties where that is the case. So
Yeah, I hadn't heard that, so that's great.
Thank you. So you're happy to move the recommendations, Councillor Nixon? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lawson, thank you. Councillor Sholem?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm certainly not opposed to the clarity that this new policy will provide in a lot of ways. The thing that I'm interested in, though, is being that it is a new policy, which then becomes an ongoing policy for council, I see within the report that the risks are identified in the current context, but I'm just trying to understand the ongoing risks of introducing this policy as it stands with the detail it has. If, God forbid, we were to be hit with another natural disaster of even more significant size, which had affected even more properties, what this policy presents in terms of a commitment from council. Yeah, I'm just interested in comment around that.
I mean, I've written the policy so it's not specific to Cyclone Gabrielle, because for that very reason, if something happens in the future, we actually have it there if we want to go down that track. But again, it will come down to the decisions made by council. You know, we currently only have a policy for postponement, natural calamity postponement, which means you don't have to pay it now, but you will have to pay it. And you know, if we had another event like this, you know, I think we would still want to respond the way we have done now. We've tried to limit it by putting in a 2-year time period rather than open-ended. I know Auckland had this for a previous event and have used it again this time. Same with Napier had this with, they had their floods last year, the year before. Again, they reenacted their policy this time. That's why we didn't want to write the policy so specific to this event.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Councillor
a
Sharma?
clarifying question?
Yes.
Thank you for that information. And I absolutely recognise the fact that there's a time frame that's been wrapped around the policy as well. However, I think the thing I'm interested in is some of the wording you've just used there in your answer around council may consider using this again in the future. So if this is a policy of council and another natural disaster hits, is it for the council of the day to decide whether or not the policy applies, or is it something that automatically applies if we put this forward?
So the policy for red stickers, I think, if ever happened again, if we, sorry, yeah, my throat's a bit. So for the red stickers, if we had a situation again where we had red stickers, again, we would automatically apply that. The policy is written with the yellow stickers that we may apply it again. So that's given it. So it's not saying for certainty we'll do it for the yellows or the land, but certainly for red stickers we would automatically do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
I am concerned about this because when I read under conditions and criteria, number 2, rate remission for severely eroded or impacted properties. That could be most of Tūtera. And I don't think that the purpose of this is actually to be granting rates remission for a large landscape such as properties around Tūtera. I don't think the wording is right. My colleague, Councillor Butto, also doesn't think the wording is right for what the intent of the policy is. So, asking advice, does this go out as a draft? So we're not saying this is the policy subject to submissions, but we go, this is a draft policy. For a start, I'm just uncomfortable because so many people could read this and go, I've got a rates remission for 2 years, and then it's not fitting with what our intent is, and there's disappointment and angst, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I don't know whether we just defer this, if that's of any help.
Mr Allen, could you just respond?
Through your worship. Yes, I think we can go out, because it's sort of an informal consultative process that will go out. We'll specifically engage with certain agencies that reflect the communities that have been affected, and we'll do a more general consultative process as well. But I think we can go out with, this is our line of thinking. This is the draft policy settings, and we'd like to hear your feedback. Ultimately, we're not asking you to approve the policy today. We're asking your approval with the new recommendations that are up on the screen, to adopt. We probably need to put the draft remissions of rates. If we can just add the word draft in there in B.
Do we not adopt?
Yep, so happy to take that as a change. Look, I just want to point out conditions and criteria. Should be 2, 1, 2. This is where the land has become unusable or uneconomic. That is very, very clear to our areas that have been hard hit in our district. We know where those areas are. This is the discretion of the people in those areas who cannot resume business, cannot carry on with their livelihoods, cannot farm, cannot grow crops, cannot grow fruit. This is what we're looking to support and help through this policy. These are the hardest hit people, not those resuming their normal daily lives.
No.
So can I make that quite clear, please? That is quite clear under number 2, should be, under this rates remission, severely eroded or impacted properties. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Kerr?
Yeah, once again, I'm conscious of time and I understand we have somebody in Zoom, and so I'm happy that this just gets paused if you wish and get the wording tweaked while we have the other submission come in. I'm just uncomfortable that we're adopting.
Bring draft in there, Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, I'm still going to stay with I'm uncomfortable that we are adopting, but I'll leave it.
So I mean, I'd like to hear from other views, perhaps the mover, that we receive this as a draft.
Can I just
Councillor Nixon?
comment rather than ask a question? And I know a lot of you are far better informed on what's happening out in the community than I am, but my observation listening to people is there is disquiet out there about the seemingly endless delays that people have been subjected to, and I'm just worried that we're just adding another delay, and I think we should try and resolve this today for sure, so that it gives certainty to people in the future. I don't think it's fair on people that they're in limbo yet again on yet another issue. We're not the only ones contributing to this. You've got insurance and all sorts of other things, but I just don't want us to be part of that delay process.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, as seconder, I'm quite happy with the changes that have been made to the recommendations. I think received the draft and also the proposed in there is probably sufficient for what we need. I am interested though, it has been socialised with the community board, the Rural Community Board, so I'm interested to know what their feedback was and were they supportive of this paper.
Thank you. Members of the Community Board who would like to speak? Councillor Butto?
I think it was considered at a high level at the community board, and any specifics probably should be circulated amongst them again to make sure it's on the right track and the wording is appropriate for the areas that have been impacted.
Thank you. Any follow-up question?
No.
You're
thank
happy
you,
to
Yes, I'm
second?
happy to support the new recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Dixon?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just I'd like the two words that you used included, to assist ratepayers, where the land is uneconomically viable or the primary dwellings buildings have been detrimentally affected by the natural disaster. I'd like the words uneconomically viable, but after the word land.
I think that's already contained within the draft policy. So that is the draft policy criteria that you've got
Okay,
here
fine,
on
thank you.
page 25. So I probably don't need it captured in the recommendations because it's already the criteria set, yes. Okay, any further comments? Okay, cool. Look, I'm really supportive of this. We've got so many people out there hurting that can't even get any funding in our health sector to clear their property from the debris. They are still struggling. They have no ability, they have had no revenue, and they've had no ability to clean up, they've had no support. So I think this is absolutely critical for the well-being of our community and particularly in our small and medium-sized enterprises to be able to get some relief and support through rates. So I am very, very supportive of this proposal. So we have a mover and a seconder. I'd like to put those recommendations that have been amended. Second, in writing reply, you're comfortable with the direction? Thank you. I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item number 10. Welcome to Jeff Clues, our public spaces and ground leases rental. Oh, is Liz here? Oh, so Liz is online. Thank you very much. Okay, so to anybody who's joining us today, we're just going to receive a submission and we'll come back to our live streaming shortly. Thank you very much. And Liz is online. So Liz Davies is on Zoom. She's